Okay, so let's go ahead and continue by building the chart. Okay, so we've got the chart area here. Unfortunately, it's got a lot of superfluous stuff on there that we don't need for this particular lab. Why don't we first click on chart title and go ahead and add our chart title. Let's call it 3 vector addition. Although we're not going to add 3 vectors, we're only going to add 2, but this particular lab is dealing with the 3 vectors. Let's start getting rid of some things on the in the plot area. The first thing that we can do is get rid of the horizontal and the vertical markers on here. There's other ways to do that. You can click and get plot area, but I just highlighted it by clicking on it, hit delete. That goes away. Do the same thing for the horizontals, delete. And I really don't even need the axes on these, so I'm going to take off the axes. And all I'm left with is that plot for the vector A. But unfortunately, it's pointing the wrong direction. It should be pointing down here. Well, that's because when the chart was made, it tried to figure out which of these components that we put in there was the correct one. So what we need to do is fix that. So if you look up here in the upper right, it says select data. Click on that. You can also right click in the chart area, but we'll show you that later. So let's go ahead and let's move this down so we can see what's going on and name this vector A. Okay, and it's going to change this from series 1 to vector A. And so let's clear the X value field and select the X values we want. So I'm going to select 0 and I'm going to select 200. When I do that, I can move down to the Y values now, delete the information that's in there, and again select 0, shift 0, and click OK. Now what happens is it will have moved that vector, which I can't see here. What did it do with it? That vector to the bottom. I had no line. I had automatic or no line selected. So now you can see the line. It's clear to see that we've got a vector pointing in the right direction, but it doesn't have any information on it. It's waiting for some information. Well, we're going to come over here at the bottom on the right side where it says end arrow. When I highlight this, I should get a, see, now it's doing all kinds of weird things for me. I should get a choice of what color I want. So I'm going to click back on the or what end arrows I want. So I'm going to click end arrow over here. It's just off of the screen, and when I do so, I should be able to see my vector with an arrow point on it. I really didn't want a border here, so I'm going to go back and reselect no line. So now I've got the vector laying in the display place. Now let's go ahead and select it again so that we can start adding some labels to it. I want to click on it. I keep getting the wrong thing. I want just the vector. Okay, so when I do that, I can come over here and select the labels that I want. Currently, it doesn't know what I'm asking it to do. So I'm going to right click on that line and I'm going to tell it to add data labels. And when I do, you see it put a couple of zeros on there. Those are not what I want. So I need to format that. So if I click on it again, I should get format data labels. And now what I see is I get choices. I want to kill the Y value, and then got to keep it selected here, and then I want to, I'm going to have to go back again and tell it to add data labels. And when I do, come on, boy, this is being really finicky today. Format data labels. Okay, now I want to kill the Y value. God. and I want it to only display the label name. Okay, so if I can get this thing to settle down. Goodness. I want it to say series name, no Y value, and the position is just fine. So let's clear the label on the other side here. You can just click on it, hit delete. And now I have vector A set up. These things can be finicky, so don't get frustrated. Just keep clicking on them and trying, and they'll clean up eventually. So now that I've added vector A, I'm going to add vector B. So I highlight the chart area again, and I want to select data. Okay, so select data, and now I need to add the vector B series. So it's calling it series C2 right now. I'm going to rename it to vector B, and now, like I did before, I need to pull in the correct data points. Well, on this one I need the 0, but I need to skip the A stuff. So if I skip over it and hit Command or Control while I select it, it will deselect the one and only select the other. So I've got the X values in there. I'll delete the information that's in the Y. I'll do the same thing. I want 0 and Command or Control 282 and say OK. Now as soon as I do that, you can see that it has drawn vector B. Now I need to add the label information on vector B. So carefully click on it. That becomes just highlighting the arrows or the vector. Now if I click on the paint can, I can put an end arrow on it. Again, it's just off the screen. Click on that. If I click off of it now here, I can see it did in fact put the arrow on it. Now I want to click on just the vector B again. I want to now add labels. So I'm going to right click, add data labels. It's going to put the ones on there that it thinks I wanted. Those are not the ones I want. So I'm going to right click on it again, and I'm going to format them this time. And in formatting them, I'm going to call it the series name. You'll notice it showed up at both ends. Kill the Y value. And let's move its label position above. So now it's just above. The one at the origin, let's highlight and delete. So now we have vector A and vector B shown. So now we need to bring in vector C because we're going to add B and C together. So we need to show C. So let's right click, select data, click on vector B, hit the plus sign, or if you're using the PC, you're going to have a different choice here that says add and edit. So you're going to use those two functions to make these same types of entrance. So I'm going to add series 3. I'm going to rename it to vector C, and I'm going to reposition this so I can see the values for vector C. Click in the X values area, click on 0, skip the first two, Command or Control to pick up just the 99, clear the fields in the Y values, go in the Y component, click the 0 and the -273. OK. Now we can see we've got a beautiful graph here in the making with both vector A, C, and B. So let's go ahead and put our labels on vector C. So I highlight it, I right click, I add labels. It put what it thought I wanted. Let's go ahead, since we have it highlighted nicely, hit the paint bucket again, put our end arrow on there so that it will have the arrow. Now what I want to do is I want to format it. So I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to format the label, and it should ask me what I want. I only want the series name, and I do not want the Y value. Okay, I just want the end. And let's put that one to the left. Okay, so it's to the left. Delete the one at the origin, and now we have vector A, B, and C clearly labeled. And now we're waiting for our resultant. Okay, so we've added the three vectors together onto the vector diagram, onto the chart, and now we need to add our resultant. Okay, so why don't we, since vector A we know is the equilibriant, let's click on it, and let's click on the paint bucket, and let's make it a dashed line, since we know that it's really was there just to balance things off when the experiment was done. It doesn't really come into play because we're not going to add it in. We're only going to add B and C to get our resultant. So at this point, let's go ahead and stop, and I'm going to get set up for showing you how to do the resultant.